Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Bus. On this one, I have myself a rooftop tent. So we're actually going to do weld some bar work up onto the tray of the Luxy. Unfortunately, the sports bars will have to be removed. I've already got it folded up just here. So I've had this folded up. I actually got it done at Barrier Group in Geelong. I wanted to get it nice and thick, and the only place that would do it is a safety place like bollards and stuff. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's get some welding done, and we'll have a little peek at the rooftop tent at the end.
To get the rear hoop made up, I did have to give Barrier Group some measurements so it looked the same as the headboard. Now, I had never done this before, and I'm sure they felt like they were working with a complete idiot, but I did my best to measure it up, and they actually came through, and it came out perfect. If you guys want to do something like this, you'd be surprised just how willing a business is to work with you, even if you don't have the knowledge, because they were asking me for all kinds of things, like the center to center pipe bending, the outside to end, the degree of bends, which I didn't really know as well because I didn't have anything to check that. Centerline radius of the bends, didn't know any of that. But, I've still measured it up. I gave them a poorly drawn up paint picture, and they honestly worked with me so well, and I couldn't be happier with their service. Especially considering that they just do safety bollards, your handrails, all things like that. It's honestly, I'm surprised with how it's come out. Straight into it with the angle grinder. I do realise that the angle grinder is not going to get in on all these angles to cut this low enough. So I also remembered that I had a Recipro sitting in the shed. So I was like, oh, maybe let's just pull out the Recipro. So once I pulled that out, that made the job so much easier once that clicked in my head. But the sports bars, I did love the look of them, but they were a little bit impractical because the 12-volt box I couldn't mount right to the edge of the tray, which really blocked my options for putting a spare tire on the back. So I do want to put some mount points for the spare tire to be mounted on against the headboard with a strap over the top of it, just so that way I have the space and that way I'm not taking up too much space. If we're looking at those cuts, it's looking pretty gnarly in there. Somehow it's been filled with mud in the bottom, even though it's been welded on. We've got to sort out the plates for the tailboard. That's what I'm calling it, ladder rack, whatever you want to call it. So there's the two plates that we're going to use. We got those to level out. We've got on those welds to level it out. And here is my absolutely most professional welding ever. As you can hear, it's actually not going as well as it should be. And we did have some struggles getting the gas and everything sorted on it, but eventually we did get really good welds and connection, and the two materials were really mating there. So at the end it did turn out quite well, but we really should have practiced on some pieces first, but instead we just jumped straight into it, which is never a good thing, but it looks good in the end. Now we move on to welding the tailboard on. So this, again, pretty standard. We've got the plates welded onto the tray, and the welds are actually mating the surfaces nicely. And this is pretty simple, all of this stuff, but it's kind of the next steps where we run into a little bit of trouble. So we've bloody welded on the bar. That wasn't too much effort, but we've also just put some plate in here, welded all that in. Look, it's not the best welds. I've still got to go over these and hit them up again. I've cut one side into that and one side into this. This end looks like dog shit because we actually ran out of our drill bits, or the hole saws. They both got cooked. I actually had to go out and get these hole saws. So these are carbide bits because, like I said, the other one's pretty hard. I've got myself set up on the drill press, so this is making life so much easier and getting it straight neutral. Not the most ideal setup, but I do also have that to sit the pipes nice and level, and it's working well. or at least it was working well. I drilled the pilot holes, come back in with the bit, and because the steel pipe was so thick, it worked, but look, the tool was having to work too hard. We were having to make the tool work too hard. So essentially, the vibration from the drill bit made my drill press fall apart. So I had the chuck was falling out, and then I put that back in and got that sorted, and it wasn't falling out anymore. And then the whole actual bit was falling out of the actual belt driven bit at the top. So then we had to think of a different way to do this. Luckily, there's some pretty talented people around, and I was advised by Brendan, who actually builds custom motorcycles. He advised me that you could just trace the shape that you need, and he cut it out with some window flashing. That's window flashing there, and then I can just come back and cut it with the angle grinder. So thanks, Brendan, for that. Essentially, I just made 4 cuts into it to get the angles that I required. It wasn't the best, like there was little bits of gaps when the pipes all went together, but because I was MIG welding, I was able to just fill all that in. And the thing is, we were trying to go a bit too precise at the start with the hole saws. You know, that was like almost the exact measurement or the exact diameter of the hole saw that we needed to mount the headboard and the tailboard with the poles to then mount the rooftop tent on top of that. But after doing the 4 cuts, it was close enough that there was bugger all gap anyways, because that window flashing really did help to get that as close as possible to what we needed. Now that I've done the cutouts, we can weld up the ladder rack. So first off, we've got to make sure it's all square. I put a pipe either end of the length ones that's running from the headboard to the tailboard, just to make sure that we have it all sorted. Otherwise, you know, if I mounted them on the angle, it wouldn't be a good look, because they wouldn't mount flush to the headboard or the tailboard, and we would have had the crossover pipes on all kinds of funny angles. But I've made sure it was all right, and then we can get into the welding side. So again, just welding, square, make sure it's all square, and then weld it up. And then I stood it up, welded it up, and yeah, and then we can start looking at putting it up on the tray. Before we do that, we have to do the final pass over and make sure all the welds are good. Also, this is a great time to check the measurements to make sure everything's right, because once it's fully welded in place and not just tacked, it is a bit of a dog to do, because you'll have to then grind the welds back off. So finishing that up, the ladder rack is looking quite good. This for a strapping job. So I didn't really know how I was going to keep this up, and I was like, oh, I'll just go and grab 100 ratchet straps out of the shed and that'll sort us out. And it worked a treat, because it pulled the headboard and the tailboard together and made everything sit exactly where I want. And then I didn't even have to think about holding anything or getting anyone to help me. I only needed the initial hand from my wife, actually, thanks Morgan, to help me lift it up there and then strap it together. And then from there, it was actually so easy. All I had to do was climb up on it and then get to more welding. The welds are complete. Good. Looks really good in some spots. Looks absolutely awful in other spots. But the most important thing is that we do have the strength there, and we definitely have the meshing of the two materials, the 2 bits of metal. And it's important that it can just hold the weight of the rooftop tent. I do have to cut these ones back still. I was using it for the clamp on the welder, as it was giving me a really good ground for the welding. But yeah, essentially going to cut in the sides. Both sides need it to be done, and then I'm going to fill that in with weld. And let's be real, it's probably not going to look the best, but it's going to look better than a gaping hole. It's all ground down now. Time to fill it in with some weld. Now that looks way better than the big gap. I've still got to grind it down. The other side's all done, and you can see it's still smoking. It's going to look way better than having that big gap there once it's all ground down. We just got to paint the dog. Or actually, we've got to flapper disc the other welds just to clean them up a little bit, and then we've got to paint the dog. Looking heaps better now that it's been grinded, but Still not amazing, but definitely better than a gaping hole.
Grindy, 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 grindy. Grindy, grindy, grindy. Grindy, grindy, grindy. Ow, my head. Grindy, grindy, grindy. Grindy, grindy, grindy. And I missed a weld on the back one. So I've got to pull the welder back out. Now this is finally welded up, we have to paint it. And then we'll have to let it dry. But then after painting, we'll actually have a look at mounting the rooftop tent on as a bit of a finish up to this one. So I've got to wipe it down first, but once I've wiped it down, get all the dust off it, give it a good paint. I know it all looks black, but most of it's just black iron. So so far, well, not so far, I'm really stoked with how this turned out, to be honest. I haven't really done anything like this before. It kind of looks a bit more professional than anything I've ever done, anything I've ever welded up before. I've only done little simple stupid jobs, like little exhaust bits and stuff like that, but nothing quite to this scale. So I'll paint it up, I'll give it a good clean, paint it up, and then we'll have a look at the finished product, which I reckon it's going to look pretty fucking sick actually. Let's see it. How's that? She's all painted up. Even shit welds look half decent when you put a bit of black paint on them. It's looking very nice. Let's have a look over the top. She's all ready for a rooftop tent. But unfortunately, I'm still doing other modifications for another video, so I can't even move it to do the rooftop tent yet.
This is something that my wife and I are going to enjoy, this rooftop tent, so I did think that it's only appropriate to have her out while we open it up for the first time and pull out all the hardware and have our first actual look at it. And we are bloody stoked with it. We had the old Adventure Kings fold out one, which was, let's just say, not that good. And yeah, this is going to be an awesome setup and pack up time. Got the ladder and everything in there, all the hardware as you need. I'm not going to be using the factory mounts, I'm going to be using other ones. Got to put it up on the rooftop now on the rails that I've all welded up. So my wife and I did manage to do this, just us two. It's pretty important that we figure out how to do it with just us, because it will be getting moved off my car onto her car. However frequently we have to do that, so we thought we may as well get a game plan of how we're going to do it each time, and we absolutely nailed it, so absolutely stoked with it. This is some 32 NB galvanized brackets from Bunnings, and they fit perfectly over. Look at that. That is absolute perfection to have hard mount up there instead of the flat bars they have, which would have had to bend heaps. I would have had to put heaps of torque on them to bend them up. Anyways, I think it's time for the reveal of everything all together. Let's see it. How's that for a ladder rack install or rooftop tent rack, whatever you want to call it? Welds are not the best. The welds are most definitely not the best, but they are going to hold the weight. So they'll be plenty sturdy enough. I did get this bar fabbed up at Barrier Group in Geelong. They do safety bollards. I needed to go to them because I need thick enough steel pipe so that way it can hold my fat ass. But yeah, I'm really stoked with how it turned out. I will do a review on this at some point in the future, once I've actually had a chance to sleep in it. But anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one. No, don't touch those. Just refine. Wait till I finish talking, okay? When I finish talking, you can play with stuff. No? How's that? I have successfully welded up I guess you can call it a ladder rack. Well, the whole purpose was for the roof rack, or for the rooftop tent, sorry. And I'm thinking it looks pretty schmick. You need to get here. I can't do it. You stand here and I'll put you back up there. As a little bonus at the end of this video, here is my nephew's reaction to the rooftop tent and the roof bars.